We're building a rack today for Gibraltar artist Kent Slucher, drummer for Bryan. This is the future of country music, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah! Okay, I'm gonna calm down. Kent called me, and he started giving me ideas of what he wanted. He's like, I want something stealth, I want some double tier action, I want flash. And I'm like, whoa, you want stealth, flash, double tier action? Yes, I want all that. Okay. So he put me in touch with his drum tech. And his drum tech just started feeding me a bunch of pictures, you know, gave me dimensions, gave me widths, gave me heights, gave me colors, gave me everything, gave me midgets doing backflips. I mean, he had everything listed here. And I just took all those pictures, and this is what I came up with. I built the rack based off of all the pictures, had all the drums and everything in the place that they need them. So let's actually have a look at all the stuff that we've got to mount to this rack. Now I want you to keep in mind that this isn't Ken's drum company. I don't always have the drum company, the artist's drums available when I build a rack, so I use whatever I can in order to get the job accomplished at that time. All right, let's see what we're going to mount to this bad boy. Right here, this is going to be the SBDS Electronics. I don't have one, but we're going to put one here. We got a 20-inch China, 20-inch crash, another 20-inch crash, 16-inch hi-hats. Now, these are 8 and 10-inch concert toms, and we have, this actually is an 18-inch floor tom, but it's a little small for Kent. Kent's going to be using a 20-inch gong drum right here. So here we've got a 9x12 rack tom, 14-inch snare, 18 by 22-inch bass drum. This is a 24-inch ride cymbal. Holy shnikes! 21-inch crash, 20-inch crash, 16-18 floor. This boy likes them big. When I start building a rack, I always build the front section first because this is the most important area. This is where your rack toms, your snare drum, and your kick drum are all located, and they need to be as comfortable as possible. This creates your foundation. Now you'll see that these bars and clamps are already preset, but we did that to save time for filming purposes. I'm going to use a 30-inch straight leg here to mount to create the front part of the rack because Kent only needs his rack tom to be about, I'd say about 34 inches off the top of off the ground. So there's no need to use anything longer than this just because we're going to have to cut more. So here you can see there's a lot of clamps and memory locks already on this bar. This is an example of how I preset it. So now all I'm going to do is just attach the bars to it. Okay, so now it's time to add the crossbar. Okay, so creating the front part of the rack is the most important part. You need to make sure that all the bars are level. This has to be level here, here, and here. And then each of the legs have to be level, you know, from going left or right. Okay, so now it's time to add the snare drum. Kent plays a double pedal, so we're using the GPRSBAR so that the connector bar does not interfere with his pedal. I've got the SC-GPRSBAR, and it's the bar with the bend in it to go over the double pedal arm. And I connected it to the front leg with a right angle clamp, just a standard chrome right angle clamp, the SC-GCRA. And I attached the no-leg snare stand. This is one of the no-leg snare stands that we have that's really great. Comes in two separate pieces. There's the mini T-leg, which actually, you know, comes with the stealth rack, but the mini T-leg and the GUASB snare basket. This is the GSMTL, the GUASB, and this works great for a no-leg snare stand because it's got a wider foot, but still only has 1 foot on the ground. It makes it very, very, very stable. So with this unit, you know, you've got less amount of feet on the ground, more stability. Okay, so now it's time to build the left side. And Kent wanted it 2-tiered, and he needs to be able to mount a gong drum. So a 20-inch gong drum at that. So that means the inner tier has to be low enough to the ground that we can actually hold a 20-inch gong drum. Because these gong drums are going to have, have floor tom brackets as if it is mounted like a floor tom, but we're going to mount 2 of the brackets instead of all 3. So we need to make this large enough to where we can fit a gong drum and then still enough space in the back so he can put electronics. So a 46-inch curve isn't going to be long enough for us to do that. We're going to have to extend it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use two 36-inch curves, clamp them together to make one long curve. So now it's time to put the upper tier on. We need a little bit more bar because the outside diameter is always going to be larger than the inside diameter. On this outer portion, since this upper tier is what's going to be seen most by everybody, especially since the gong drum is going to be covering this bottom tier, no one's going to see that. The outer tier, this is definitely going to be seen, and I needed to be able to simulate a half circle as best as I could. Now this clamp will allow me to do so because I can adjust the angle of the top portion of this clamp right here. This is a 40, but this is a 46. And the reason I'm doing a 46 is because of the way the bend looks in the bar. If I'd used two 40s, I wouldn't have gotten the same arc to this entire upper tier that I would have without using a 46. It's just the way that the bars are made. I needed to have a little bit more space in between this bar and the leg in order to be able to get the exact arc, the exact half circle that I wanted. This is the SC-GCSAR, and what's really unique about it is the fact that you can adjust the angle to many different angles and offshoot bars in crazy directions. This one I'm just using as a right angle, and I'm specifically only using it to get a little bit of distance between this bar and this bar. Okay, so now we've got the top tier attached to both the front leg and the back leg, which now I can relieve this temporary leg of support right here. It's not going to damage the rack if I pull this thing off. Okay, so the next thing to do is we need to add the gong drum onto the bottom tier. So I'm going to take two tom arms and we're going to mount them on this lower bar. The drum is going to fit right over that, and you're not even going to see the connector piece. All right, so now it's time to put the hi-hat on. We need to make sure that the hi-hat's comfortable right here before we add anything else. He plays a little bit larger hi-hats than the average player. He plays 16-inch hi-hats as opposed to 14-inch, so we need to make sure we have allotted enough space for that. So what I've used here is the SC-EA100, which is an extension arm with a clamp with a swivel adjustment on the end, and I just connected that with a multi-clamp to the rack. Now he's got a no-leg hi-hat stand that's locked into place. It's not going to move on him, and plus it cleans up a lot of the stuff on the floor. So now it's time to put his concert toms on the left-hand side. Mounting two drums to one bar, it's a little heavy. So I'm going to actually build a foot so that it supports on the ground, and it also supports this horizontal bar right here. Okay, so I need to use a double tom mount to mount the two toms to this actual post. And this is the SC-DP. It's got two ball and socket type arms right here, and it's also got a clamp that I'm going to use to mount his crash cymbal above it. So this fits right down in here. Now left side is complete. We're over at the right side, and I'm going to just pretty much duplicate what's on the left side on the right side, but there's not as much going on over here, so we don't have to add but two bars. That's it. I'm just going to use a 46-inch curve for the lower tier and a 46-inch curve for the upper tier. The lower tier is going to go on the inside. Use another 20-inch straight bar. Before we put any of the cymbal arms on, we need to trim this sucker down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off all the fat that is unnecessary to this rack before we continue for the rest of it. So all four of these legs are going to be cut down to just about 1 inch above the clamp. And the reason that is because I'm going to put the SC-RBA over each one of the legs. On this particular back leg, on the hi-hat side, he's going to be putting an SPD electronics right here, so he's going to mount it directly out of that. So I'm going to measure to about 1 1/8 because I want a little bit of flexibility. I'm going to cut 1 1/8 just above the clamp. Now, I'm going to put the RBA cap right over the top. Now everything's trimmed down, let's add the bars for the cymbals. Here we have it. It's done. Voila. No, it's not completely done. I've got to ship this over to Kent, and he's definitely going to have to make some adjustments to make it feel good for him because he's not here to sit here and work on it with me. I got it as close as I possibly could, but he's still going to have to make some adjustments for himself. Now you guys got to see from start to finish, from the ideal concept of what we thought it was going to be to what you see here. Tune in next time. Thanks for watching.